In this video, I am experimenting with Folk Art Color Shift acrylic paints. These are metallic, gloss finish, and they come in such a wide variety of colors, but I'm experimenting with them to see if we can get similar effects as what we do with the Lumiere by Jacquard in the halo colors, which I had done a live stream where I was using these, experimenting on unbaked clay, and then there's also a lady who does a really good tutorial showing how to use these on baked like cabochons, and I will try my best to link her down in the video description because her tutorial is a huge inspiration for me. But I wanted to see if these color shifts that come in a much broader spectrum, I've only ever been able to find 3 of the halo colors, but let's see what these ones do for us. So I want to experiment and see how these colors come out both on black and white clay. So I have just on some pieces of freezer paper with the waxy side up, rolled out on the thickest setting of my pasta machine, and I've stamped them with this clear rubber stamp, which is really nice because you can swap it out for whatever design that you like. I will have links down in the video description below to where you can purchase all of these tools and materials for yourself, and whenever you use those links, it actually greatly helps our business because we're Amazon affiliates, and that's pretty cool. Now, something that I've noticed, and I'm not a trained like art professional or anything, I just kind of muck around until I find something that works, is that whenever you're mixing your colors, if you mix colors that are not next to each other on the color wheel, you're going to end up with a much muddier color than what you would if you're mixing colors that are next to each other. So we're going to get a much nicer blend effect if we stick to kind of color groups. This one, I suspect the pink going into the yellow might end up, the purpley pink rather, going into the yellow might end up being a little bit more muddy. So that's something to keep in mind. And if anybody has any advice or input on that, I love learning from you guys. So please leave a comment down below. Now I'm going to start using a spritz bottle and spray the surface first. I've found on the unbaked clay, I really like the effect that that gets better than putting the paint on first and then spraying. And I'm just going to start grabbing colors and going through and seeing what happens. I shake first, that way I can use the cap, that way I'm not cross-contaminating the entire bottle whenever I'm lazy and don't rinse my brush out in between. So you can see I just got a little bit of the pigment on there, and it's already, let me see if I can't zoom in for you, separating pretty nicely and flowing around. It's really cool. I guess I am going to go ahead and rinse my brush out in between. Look at that. And this one is the red flash color shift. So let's see how that goes. Just getting a bit onto the brush. And, ooh, now this actually, is that blue I spy in there? It is having a pretty cool color shifting effect, if you can kind of see. But again, whenever there's a bit too much water, wow, that's neat. So I always kind of mess up a little bit and do, oh, well, more is more. And it's like, no, not necessarily. More is not always more. Oh, this one I hadn't even used yet. Check that out. So this is opening up the package. Doo-doo-doo. I don't want to get paint all over my fingers, but it seems unavoidable. I'm actually going to use some of the paint from this little plasticky part. Waste not, want not, and all that good stuff. Ooh, this one has like a purpley flash to it. Okay. But yeah, just getting some nice experimentation going. What an orange though. Like that is nifty. Stirring that out. Now I'm going to see if we can't blend into this lighter green. It is a green flash. And you'll notice I'm actually setting the main bottles far off to the side. That way I do not just knock them over. Coming through with our green. I am hesitantly blending the green into the orange because I don't know what kind of effect that's going to get us. And I'll mess around a bit with it down here too. Yeah, getting us a little bit of a mud blend. And we can actually take a drier brush and lift some of this moisture out, or we could come through with a tissue. I'm actually going to lay a bit more yellow in. Trying to make sure this is definitely has a tendency to become a little clumpier than the Lumiere paints, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And I'm going to do more of this red just to see. Ooh! Just kind of painting. Because you never know until you try, you know? Let me zoom out just a hair. That way you can get the full effect. And now I'm going to try this violet flash, which I think that'll be pretty neat. Ooh. Getting a nice glob of that. And just blending. Okay. So let's look at this from some. So we have some bleed off under the edges. That's okay. We can actually let them run into each other a little bit. We have a little too much excess, so I'm actually going to grab some tissues. Oops, knock a bunch of stuff over. Yeah, I've been on a crafting bench, so I have not been cleaning up my craft area. And I'm just going to come in and blot up some of this liquid, extra water. And like in here, we have some pooling. So I'm just going to touch it and lift it out. And so we can actually just dab across, and you can see it lifts that red out and just leaves the purple behind. And then we can take it with the stamping and give it something to settle into. So I don't want to mess about with it too much. But I am going to set this off to the side to let it dry. And then the next one I'm going to do these same colors, but we'll respritz it after the fact. Because again, you never know until you try. So this one's already pretty damp. Whenever I'm going through and doing the stamping, I use water as a repel to keep the clay from sticking to the stamp. So I'm just going to go through and gently blot. It doesn't have to be bone dry, but I'm just getting some of the liquid off. I'm actually going to take this orange film out so it gets out of the way. And I got orange on my hand, okay. Just wipe that on there. I really do like using the caps as little palettes. Okay, so now I'm going to start with our orange. And I'm using a flat brush because I want to be able to leave some of this pigment behind into the crevices of the stamping. See how that worked? And so I am really interested to see the different results. And this is a slightly wetter brush. And I'm just painting this in. We'll take some green, paint that in. This green's very thick and nice. I like it. Paint in that yellow. I guess let's go ahead and try some of this red. Not gonna lie, the red's probably my least favorite color. It's a little too salmon. Like, it's not my favorite thing. But just because I don't like it doesn't mean somebody else might like it, might not like it. And then also, I may not like it right now, but it may come out like super awesome cool later. So don't knock it till you try it. I'm also gonna, well, I want to stick to the same color scheme. I'll add in more colors on the next experiment. So doing a bit more orange. I like how the flash in the orange matches the flash in the violet flash. So that's interesting. Get a little bit more yellow. I really like that yellow. It's so vibrant and pretty. I'm also wondering about what it would be like to apply it with just my finger or a sponge even, or I'm just very curious. I think curiosity has a really good place in this. Okay, so we've applied a bunch of paint. Let's try spritzing. There we go, starting to get a little bit of movement. I'm a very impatient person. That's probably not the best way to do this. Getting a little bit of a mud blend right here. The thicker paints over here. I don't know. Let me see what sticking my finger in it does. Ooh. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to try finger painting this on the next experiment. Oh, yeah. Okay, so there's way too much liquid on this. So I'm actually just going to touch and draw. And you can see I can just touch over here on the corner and it's pulling the liquid. I can also tilt it. And just give it somewhere to guide off into. Because really the Lumiere halo paints are perfect in every way except for there's only 3 colors. And so I wanted to see if I could experiment with some slightly different behaviors and colors and textures and stuff. So that's looking pretty neat. Okay, so I'm going to set this one off to the side. And now I'm going to finger paint on this one. I'm going to make it just a little damp first. Spread that water. And get my finger into some green. Get my other finger into some yellow. I want to get some teal in here. I'm gonna have to get some paper towels or something. Ooh, I like that teal. A little bit more green. Some violet flash. Yes, I like that. That teal though. Oh my gosh, that teal though. Get some more of this yellow out. Yeah, I really like buffing it on with my finger because it's, I don't know. It just, I feel like it is giving us a different effect. I can dig it. Oh my gosh, that teal mixing with the yellow. Ooh, oh, my hand's all dirty. Oh gosh. I'll just tear off some tissue to work with. And now I'm going to come through and a little bit dribbled on there. I'll just blend that in. And maybe with a spritz. Be patient, young Padawan. So I'm letting it blend over and drain and drizzle into, because that kind of tie-dye-y color shifting is what I really like, and it's getting the blends going between the different colors. And then where I get a really heavy water spot, and it was recommended to me to use watercolor paper, but I can't find it. So for now, I'm just gonna blot through here like that. Check out how different that leaves it right through that center part. So let's see if we can't get some blending back over and through that one area. Ooh, this is so much fun. Sorry, I hope that y'all aren't just like bored out of your minds. Like, I hope there's something educational about this for you here. Yes, I'm just removing just a very little bit of that water so it stops. You can see I've got a clump right here. Or like it's like a little grain of sand or clay or something that everything was pulling around. Okay. Oh my gosh, those colors. Okay, so before I overmix this and make it just a muddy mess, I'm going to go and set it off to the side so that it can dry. And now we get to start experimenting, boom, on some white clay. And now for here, I think I could benefit a lot from having less colors on my palette. So I'm gonna go with like families. Like these colors are in this group, these colors are in this group, like warm and cool colors kind of. This one is a pink flash. That'll be cool to try. You can see I haven't tried this one yet either. Okay, that'll be the palette that I use, just a little cap like that. And then a blue flash. On a piece of pink clay, I had used some of this black and gold flash, and you can see how that came out. And I thought that was really neat. So you can at least get this effect with the color shift paint. Whereas with the Lumiere paints, this is it after baking, I was getting effects like this. So I don't know if I'll be able to accomplish this with the folk art color shift, but it's worth a shot because that is beautiful. And if I could get this in multiple color schemes, my life will be complete. I don't know. My life is already complete. I'm pretty happy, but there's always room for exploration and adventure. Okay. There we go. Oh, I already had the pink flash. Sorry. I saw something with a cap on it and was like, oh, I should open that. Okay, so now here we are with our white clay. And I'm going to do like a pinky purple color scheme first on the white, just to see how this happens. Like, I guess I should group these off by how many white sheets do I even have? 2. I have 2 white sheets. How is that all I have? Oh no, okay. So I'm definitely doing one in a teal, yellow, green, blue flash, violet flash color scheme. And then I'm going to do another one in a purple, pink, purple, black and gold? Nah. This one will be the overlap color between the two. Okay. So let's start with that yellow. So if I were a proper scientist, I would have gone through and done perfect duplicates of each, you know, of this color scheme on the yellow and the black, but I'm not a scientist. I am just chaotic neutral for the most part. Ooh, a little bit of blending going on there. But yeah, I really like using my hand to finger paint. Is really doing a great job of getting the pigment down into all the little nooks and crannies. I feel like without any additional like watering down. There we go. And now I'm just going to do a teal right through the middle because it is easily my favorite color out of all of these. I don't know, I like the final blend. There's no like, oh, this one is my favorite. They're my favorite together, if that makes sense. Just blending it off a little bit into randomly. Okay, so that by itself I think is gorgeous. Let me clean my hand up. Some wet wipes would have, the foresight to get some wet wipes would have been a good idea. Okay, so now we can take this and I'm going to use our spritz bottle to spritz. How much do I spritz? I don't know. But I'm going to blend this back out and get a little bit of color back on there. And so now we can run it that way, and we can run it that way. I don't know. It is pretty though, I like it. Okay, I do feel like I need something more than just the yellow over here. So just running those colors back and forth over each other. I don't want to blend it out too much because then we're going to end up with, it's going to be too monotone. I want it to still have sections of distinguished color. Let's see if I can't lift some of the liquid out of where it's pooling over here. And just touching with like, I mean, a corner of the tissue and the surface tension of the water just helps it to get all wicked right up. And that way we're not like truly disrupting it too much, hopefully. Okay, so that's pretty. You can see, definitely see where I stamped a little bit deeper than in other spots. So that's getting set off to the side. Oh, I had 3. Herb. I'm not particularly good at counting, you guys. Oh, and I totally forgot to use this one in that one. Okay. Now I'll use it in this one. So I'm going to start with this pink flash because I like it. And just rubbing it in the same way that I would like an antique gel with leather working. Like just getting it down into the nooks and crannies mostly and making a mess. Fawn, you do so good at making messes. Why you do so good at that? Why that one thing? Well, I guess the nature of finger painting is pretty messy, so I guess that's fine. I just don't want to waste any of the paint. I didn't think I wanted that much pink in this, but gravity has determined otherwise. Okay. I'm gonna clean that off. And now whipping into some purple, which I love. Ooh, look how pretty that is. And I love these because they're so thick and like just heavily pigmented. Like it's very nice. I feel like this was good quality paint. It was a little bit more expensive than the regular folk art brand, but sometimes you get what you pay for and that's all right. Okay, going into this color. And So I'm feeling pretty good about that. It's really nice that this one has a bit of like a blue flash in it. Or not blue, but a gold flash in with the blue. I'm cleaning out some of the paint that I should have wiped my finger in between. And I'm just going to blot that onto there. And now let's try some spritzing. Get these out of the way. I don't want to water my paint down. Okay. So if I do the paint too thick, then it doesn't dissolve as readily as the Lumiere paints do. So I have to kind of buff it in a little bit, which I feel like sticking my big old hands in it disrupts some of the natural process. But again, I really hope you guys can take what I'm doing here and expand on it. Do your own experiments, find what works, then hopefully share with the class, and you know, we'll all learn from each other. Because y'all probably have ideas that I, you know, never even would have thought of. I do like draining it. To spray and drain. And then draining it long ways. Letting it get a little bit... Because see, just right through there. Too much. Too thick of blue. Yeah, just letting it take a path and then soaking it up whenever it comes out the other side. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop messing around with that one now and see how it looks. I'm actually going to add just a little bit more paint. So there we go. So that's how that one's looking. And now for our last one. We have our black. And I'm going to lay it on there and then see which color I think would look good layered in with it. And I also want to see how the finger painting does when the water's already on there. That's cute. Yeah, I kind of like it with the water already on there. It kind of helps that problem with the, it's kind of just globbing up. Ooh, what if we did this with the teal? Okay, definitely gonna have to, next time I do this, keep a lot more paper towels and stuff on hand, prepped and ready to go. So yeah, we're getting it to behave a little bit more watercolory, if that makes sense. Getting in some of that green, a little bit more of this teal that I like so much. But yeah, once we get the paint watered down a little bit, we can kind of just spot it into the water that's already on there and let it start spreading and doing its own thing. So I may need a secondary palette to make watered down versions of this paint to then blot through, almost color paint, watercolor painting with acrylic paints, if that is even a thing. a little too much water over here. So I'm just going to find a high point and blot it off. And let it leak back over to the side. Yeah, definitely getting some interesting effects with like the padding and stuff. And I don't want to muddy it up too much, so I am going to kind of pull off some of these lower spots where it's puddling. Just to give it a chance to figure out what it wants to do with its life. Now I am going to spray over here though, where we didn't have very much water to start with. And I'm not gonna lie guys, it gets some interesting effects. I am going to run it off in that direction, because I prefer, I think, to run the lighter colors into the darker colors as opposed to the darker colors into the light, if that makes sense. Just soaking it up with our tissue. And I don't want to lose too much color. Man, that looks pretty neat, I do think. I need a little bit more teal just right in here. There it goes. And I bet if I give it a minute and stop messing around with it, it'll turn into something really spectacular. Let me set that off to the side. And now we can take a look at the first piece that we did. Check that out. And it's still not dry yet, but that's looking pretty cool. So I'm going to leave it alone completely. Like, I'm going to stop recording and come back in probably an hour. And then we will be able to see how this looks after all. Because again, right now, I don't really know what I think of it. But we will be patient and we will see. And then decide from there what we think. Okay, so they are mostly dry, and I actually got some time lapse and demonstrated it a little bit of how the Lumiere paints by Jacquard, the halo paints, actually come out on the black and the white. Same stamp patterning and everything, and that way we can kind of compare the effects. Now, same exact color scheme on these, by the way. And so you can kind of see this is, and also just for reference, this is on black Primo and white Primo, both Sculpey brand, and these are unbaked still. But you can see I got some really nice color blending up through here. It leaves a really nice gold sheen on the surface of both of them, which I think is just really cool. And I don't know, like it has such a nice rainbowy effect, even though we only used those 3 colors. Now here we have this one, which I think came out pretty sweet, not gonna lie. This was the greens and the teals and the purples and I mean, just, I think it might be comparable. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm gonna keep these Lumiere paints in stock for like the rest of my life. But I think we're getting very cool similar effects with these folk art color shift. Maybe not quite to the density. Like, and also in applying the Lumiere paints seemed easier. They're a little bit easier to get really cool results with. Whereas with these guys, I had to kind of fiddle and fidget with them a bit. But I'm still really pleased with how that's come out. And then here is this one, which is still drying. You can see it's still not completely dry over here, but it's giving us some really cool shifty colors. I really like how the red and the purple blend in together. It's just, I'm excited to see how this one's, and also the densities of how deep the stamps go. I think that contrast is really cool. Here we have this one, which I think looks super neat. The orange kind of settling down in there. Just, I mean, so much flashing and stuff. Like, there's a lot of color to this. And y'all can bet on getting some experimental videos here in the future on how to do a faux labradorite with these jacquard and folk art color shifting halo paints. And then, ooh, I liked this one. I really liked the, was that the yellow that we added in to the black gold in the corner? And then just like, I don't know how much too the camera's picking up on it, but there's some really gentle color flashes going, and I'm very excited to see how these come out whenever they've been domed with resin. Now on to like probably my favorite color scheme. Oh my gosh, this is so pretty. Like, and you can see still a lot of liquid there, but that gentle blue flashing, the bold vibrant yellows, just that green. Like, I love this one. I hope it holds up through baking though. Like, not gonna lie, I'm kind of getting nervous. Gonna see how these guys hold up through baking. And that's just so pretty though. So again, comparing it to the original product, it's not quite as intense, but very similar result, and with a little bit broader, or at least a little bit different of a color scheme. So now I'm going to show you guys how I use these. And it's really nice to just, even whenever they're mostly dry like this, I don't mind stacking them. But for the most part, I typically will avoid stacking them. So I'm going to use a couple of clay cutters. And I'm actually going to go through. And if you guys are interested in a tutorial of how to make your own clay cutters modified out like this, be sure to let me know, because I'd love to share my techniques with you. And because I love this shape. It's fun and easy to wire wrap. You can set it in chainmail. There's bunches of stuff. So I'm just going to kind of position, capture what I'd like to capture, and then use the same back that we had used for doing our stamping to just press down. Because if you're just doing a couple of cabochons or blanks, it's not that bad. But whenever you're doing entire batches, your hands can get pretty tired. And I also prefer to do the big sheets like this, because as opposed to painting cabs individually, the way that I've seen other artists do, is I feel like I don't get quite the spectrum that I would get like if I were using a smaller canvas. I don't capture this full spectrum the way that we are here. Okay, again, keeping an eye on where my lines already were, coming in with a different shaped cutter. I usually start with my largest cutters and then start working my way down into smaller. Oops. Looking for where those lines are. Comparing and contrasting, making sure that I'm getting just the best of what I can. Whenever it comes out like that, I'm just going to come in, push just enough to catch it at the bottom. There we go. Isn't that just so pretty though? And so I'm going to be going through and getting little cabochon cutouts of all of our sheets, and then I'm going to bake them in a 270 Fahrenheit oven for about 20 minutes. I'm going to keep a close eye on it though to make sure that the paints don't burn, that the white doesn't burn. But yeah, like I don't know if I would have been able to achieve that same color blend if I had just painted one small cabochon individually. And then also, just another neat trick, let me get one more out of this one, is the scrap from this comes out really beautiful. So I'm just going to go through, pull our scrap. Now that is something that I'm noticing on the jacquard, is that if you put it on too thick, it's kind of rubbery, that acrylic paint is, and so I actually lost a bit down here at the tip. And so the completely dried paint is going to want to like slide up on you. So that's definitely something to watch out for. Now once it's baked and with resin over it though, like see how that little bit peeled? Once it's baked and has resin over it, I don't think you'll have to worry a bit, but just in the meantime, yeah, that little bit like that. But man, oh man, that is so pretty. But yeah, that took off the paint on that whole section. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come through, if I can find my tissue blade, and I can't, so I'm going to use this little cutter. And I'm just going to freeform it around. Put that in with our scrap clay. And just start modifying the shape of the final cab. These were freeform by design to begin with. So now we can just bend and shape it around a little bit. That's still a pretty nice little cab. So now what we can do with our scrap, and this is something that I really like doing with translucent clay as well, is we can just roll it, do the old fold and roll, squish it a bit with my fingers, and then pass it through our pasta machine. And you can start to get some interesting marbling, and it makes it a really fun scrap clay. And this is especially nice if you use a translucent clay as the base, because you can kind of see these subtle back layers. Those will shine through after baking. And it's just cool stuff. You could also take the little scrap pieces and apply them. In fact, we might do that. I can demonstrate real quick if I can keep my head about me. So I'm going to just cut out a few more. Yeah, you can see how much that bites into my fingers whenever I don't use the back, the little stamp back. Okay, so we can take little pieces like this that still have a really cool texture and design on them, and then place them on the surface of some clay. And this is something that I have done with like mokomagane pieces and other things like that, but I have never actually done with this clay, with this painted clay. So I'm really excited to see what kind of result we get, because I don't know if the clay is going to stretch well. Not the clay, the paint. Words are hard. Like, I know I say that a lot, but they put me through my paces. I'm trying to think and talk at the same time. I really, really like that one. Okay, so we can take our little bits of scrap and things and just kind of mash them up against each other. It would be better if I were doing this on a matching color of clay. Let's just see what happens if we do it like this. It might give us a pretty cool effect. And I'm just packing it on in. Smoosh, smoosh, smoosh. And this way we can conserve the design. And I'm not very good at this, but for science, yeah, conserve the design. Maybe make it look a little bit like a dichroic fused glass. Might be pretty cool. Okay, so now I'm going to take this, which is, and also I've been running these through on the thickest setting on my pasta machine, so let's see how they look fed through, again, the thickest setting on our pasta machine. Ah, it distorts pretty well. Look at that, y'all. Woo! Now again, it would have been better if maybe I had used like a peacock pearl or something. So I think this is actually what I'm going to do next time. Instead of rolling it together, I'm going to use it as an applied piece, because now we can take this and cut out, or a glow in the dark. Yeah, glow in the dark for the back, and then we can cut it out. And if this were glow in the dark, all of those little veining would glow and fluoresce and just, that'd be so cool. Okay. This is why experimentation with art is good, you guys. Like, don't ever be afraid or hesitate to try something new, especially with scrap. Worst case scenario, you just end up with more scrap. Oh, that's so pretty. Okay, so I'm going to keep doing this to my happy little heart's content, and then I am going to bake it in the 275-degree Fahrenheit oven for about 20 minutes. And if they were thicker, I would bake them for longer, but manufacturer's directions say 15 minutes for every 1/4 of an inch, and this isn't even quite a 1/4 of an inch, so I'm over baking them for sure, but I think that's okay. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll meet you guys right back here for the next step. So this is how the cabochons came out after baking. These are, for the most, yeah, these are all the folk art pieces. You can see this one here is one of the Lumiere, but they baked wonderfully at 275 degrees for about 25 minutes. And I think the folk art stayed just as vibrant as the Lumiere after baking. And then this was what I was able to make with the scrap. Some little, just stretched out scrap clay, some quilt beads, quilt cabs rather. And so the next step then is going to be to put some doming resin on these. So here you can see the resin is still setting up, but this is one without the resin after baking using the folk art color shift. And these are two after resin after baking with the folk art color shift. So you can really see it comes to life so much. Really bringing the dimension and everything. So I'm going to leave these guys alone, and then see y'all again. Now there's one. This is one that was Jacquard, the Lumiere paints, or Lumiere. Sorry, Lumiere like the band. And then this one was the folk art. So you can get some similar tones. This was the scrap clay. There was some Lumiere paint. And so, I mean, just super pretty, effects that can be achieved. Sorry, I have some that have like German glass and alcohol ink and things mixed in as well, just some mica powders. But really, really pleased with how these came out. And the resin that I used was just regular old Art and Glow casting and coating epoxy, or 2-part resin. And you can see it gives them such a beautiful shine. Really makes them come to life. So here you can see we have our folk art and our Lumiere paints. And this is before and after, before resin, after resin, and before and after resin as well. So you can really see these guys get a really nice color shift going on. It holds up fantastically even through baking. Now the Lumiere paints I've found get a much better, you can kind of see how those colors modeled together. That didn't happen as much with the folk art, but I think if I used like Floetrol or something, like how you would use in an acrylic pouring, we might get some more interesting results like that. But for the most part, it's super similar results, but in a broader spectrum of colors. So I am super pleased, and I'm definitely going to be using this technique a lot more in the future, because I mean, just look at that. That is something else if I've ever seen it. Like, super cool stuff. So yeah, sorry, this resin is so shiny that it catches the light, like, I mean, just flash. But man, it's pretty though when you can see it. It doesn't translate onto camera nearly as well as what I would have liked, but man, it's pretty over your eyeballs though in person. Hey y'all, thanks so much for hanging out with me for this tutorial. I really hope that it was helpful to you. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave them down below. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook, and all of my social media links and Patreon links will be down in the video description, so you can tag me in your work so that I can see what you're up to, as well as follow along with some of our antics here at Back to Earth Creations. So, but yeah, if you're interested in getting some of these cabochons or supporting our channel even further, please consider becoming a patron. Y'all make so much happen for us, and I can't express my gratitude. So I'm gonna keep trying my best. Sorry, I keep pointing over here because that's where the computer is, and I'm editing this video as I speak. But y'all make so much happen for us, and I'm gonna keep trying my best to give back to y'all as much as possible. But I just feel really overwhelmed with y'all's generosity and kindness, and just that you're here watching my videos, commenting, learning from me, teaching me what you've learned. Like, you guys blow my mind all the time, so thank you so much for that. And until next time, happy crafting. Oh yeah, and also there should be some stuff popping up on the screen. Magic. But you can subscribe to my channel, you can check out my vlog, and you can maybe watch another video if Future Vaughn figures out how to edit stuff. So bye guys, happy crafting, give yourselves a big hug from me. Mwah! Bye.